I just want to welcome everyone to the first episode of the Retire Ready podcast. We are excited to start this. I've got with us today Aaron Jones, who is our financial planner. He's a CPA. First episode, we're actually going to be talking about taxes, so we really want to have Aaron on the show today. So we're excited. We hope this is a show that you can come to every week. There's supposedly a thing, if you can get through 100 podcasts, like 90% of podcasts don't make it to 100 episodes. So hopefully we'll get to number 2. Got to start somewhere, right? And so, but anyways, this is going to be a good show, I think, because you may be someone that's younger saying to yourself, well, I'm not worrying about retirement right now or taxes. But there have been some recent changes that really affect really all Americans, regardless of your age, regardless of where you are. So we're going to go and dive into it. It's the Retire Ready podcast show. Let's dive into some taxes. So Aaron, tell me a little bit about there was a new law that was passed recently over in December.
Yep.
I guess an update to a law, right?
That's right. A 2.0 law. Yes.
Nice.
So Secure Act 2.0 had a few different changes, kind of built on the Secure Act that was passed in 2019, just before COVID. So we'll talk about some important changes today. One of those being the changes to the RMDs, those required minimum distributions for your 401k accounts, IRAs, SEP IRAs, solo 401ks, those types of accounts. Yep.
So the first Secure Act was passed, Secure Act of 2019, which is right before COVID. And then there's a Secure Act 2.0. And I think if you're someone that's approaching retirement right now, you may hear a lot about the Secure Act, but I think there's some minutia in the law that is probably a little bit confusing. I think a lot of it has to do with the RMD age. So just a quick explain here. So an RMD, which is a required minimum distribution, used to be once you hit a certain age, which was 70 and a half, the government forced you to start taking money out of your retirement accounts. So let's talk through the changes on that, because I think there was a couple of changes. The first Secure Act and now the second that actually impacted that.
Yeah. So the background around this goes, the IRS, the government, they said, okay, great. You get a tax deduction for contributing into these 401k accounts while you're working, for IRA accounts, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs. But then previously, once you hit age 70 and a half, the IRS said, nope, you're required to take out a certain portion each year.
Which I never figured. It's my money.
Right.
Why is the government forcing me to take my own money out?
Right.
But,
well, it's a trade, right? Yeah. You got a tax deduction first, and now you're having to actually recognize some more income in retirement that you may not have expected to recognize, right? Now, for those of you who are already taking RMDs or taking withdrawals from your IRA accounts, that may not actually, impact you much, right? But for those of you who hadn't planned on taking withdrawals from your accounts and then having to, it could cause some big changes, certainly to the amount of taxes that you pay. Yeah.
So, okay, it was 70 and a half. So once you hit 70 and a half, government forced you to take it out. And what was the number roughly?
Yeah, for your first few years, it's around 3%. There's a IRS fancy life expectancy table. The first age used to be actually 27.4.
So you take your balance
and divide by 27.4.
So let me just do some round numbers. You have $500,000 in a retirement account, an IRA or 401k. If I divide that by 27.4, the government required you to take out, is that right? $18,000 a year
on a $500,000 balance. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. So that's sizable.
It is.
So it was 70 and a half, but the Secure Act pushed it back to
age 72.
Okay.
So 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, goodness, it's 2023 now. The IRS pushed it back to age 72, and now once again they're pushing it back to age 73.
Okay. So basically, if a lot of Americans probably take money out of their retirement accounts prior to 73, but the law is basically saying if you haven't taken any money out of your retirement account yet, we're forcing you to take it out. The penalty used to be 50%. I actually did. I was wrong on this. Do you know they updated the penalty amount too?
They did. Yeah, that's one of the actually convenient updates in the plan. There's a lot of others as well, but that's one I really like, because the penalty used to be 50% of the required minimum distribution. All right. So if you were required to take out $18,000 and you just overlooked it, you missed it. Well, great. You still need to take out the $18,000 plus another $9,000. That's another $27,000 of income you must recognize that year.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
so basically a 50% penalty. I think there's actually some tweaks to that. There's like a little bit of forgiveness period I saw in the new bill.
Yep. So it's dropped to 25% now. And they've added a provision to say, if you correct that required minimum distribution error within a reasonable amount of time, file your taxes, it's once again lowered to 10%.
Okay. That's actually not bad, because We've had in the past where clients have just been traveling, they've been unable to get a hold of, they forget to take out their RMD. Bam! For example, if you had $500,000 in an IRA account and you forgot to take out your required minimum distribution, $9,000 penalty plus taxes on top of that. It's pretty sizable. So, all right, so that's a positive, I guess, in the law. I kind of suspect about that a little bit because I feel like why the federal government is giving us one more year. It has to be in their favor somehow.
Sure. They've got the math behind it, but there's two issues with it, with pushing back these that I see. Okay, so one, your first year now has a larger balance taken out. Okay, so remember the way those RMDs work are based on the life expectancy table. Okay, so the balance of your IRA is always getting divided by a lower and lower number.
Okay,
so it starts at 26.5 now. The next year is like 25.5. And on and on and on. So you're having to take out a larger percentage, let's call it, each year.
Yeah.
All right. So that's kind of the first challenge. The second challenge, and this is related to what happened in 2019, is the way IRAs or 401ks are inherited. Right. So previously, there were actually 3 or 4 ways that someone could choose to take income off of an IRA account once it got inherited. Right. Primarily, what most people did was they stretched the IRA over the lifetime.
Their entire life.
Their entire life, right?
So if you leave money to your kids or your grandkids, let's just say that you had a parent or grandparent pass away, you received the money as a retirement account. If it was $1 million, right, you had all of your life to take that out. You weren't forced to take it out right away, correct?
It's still income, right? So you still want to kind of plan around that a lot, as much as you can, right? But yeah, I mean, if you lived another 30 years, great. You could still buy, sell, trade inside an IRA tax-free until you took income off.
Or tax-deferred.
Tax-deferred.
Yeah. So now, so this leads us to the second provision. So first was the RMD change.
Correct.
Second provision of the Secure Act was when you inherit money as a beneficiary, say it's $1 million in a retirement account, whatever number is, now you don't have all of your life to pull it out. Walk us through how that's changed.
You don't have your life. Now beneficiaries have 10 years, except for spouses. Okay. So, and there's certain other qualified exemptions to that as well. But primarily if your kids are beneficiaries of these IRA accounts, then they have 10 years to fully deplete the amount of any 401ks, IRAs that they receive.
So so let's talk through that a little bit. Let's just say that you're 40 years old.
Sure.
And you receive, your grandparents leave you $1 million in an IRA account.
Seems great.
Which is a lot of money, and it could make a huge difference in someone's life. But let's just say that you're making $200,000 a year. Husband and wife working, they're making $200,000 a year. Now they just receive $1 million in an IRA account. They normally would have had the rest of their life. So if their life expectancy is 85 years old, they could have had, before this law, 45 years to draw that money out.
Sure.
So now they're 40 years old. They have to have all of that money out by age 50. So what if they're making $200,000 a year? I don't have the tax brackets in front of me, but what tax bracket are they in, husband and wife?
Yeah. So after the standard deduction, you're essentially at the top of the 22% bracket.
22% bracket. So on $1 million, if you're receiving $1 million in retirement account, do you take out 10% per year for 10 years or what?
I mean, you can technically choose. You could wait to the 10th year. There's talks that you're actually still required to continue required minimum distributions once you inherit it as well, right? But essentially, let's say for simple math, you do take out 10% each year.
Okay.
Right? That's $100,000 of extra income, which is primarily all going to be taxed at 24% federal, plus depending on the state you live in, let's say you lived in Georgia, that's essentially another 6%. So you're already losing $30,000 off that $100,000 you're receiving from that inherited account.
So it pushes you up into the next tax bracket. Then probably there's other issues with that. And then if the accounts continue to grow, I mean, if you have to pull $200,000 out in a year, or $300,000 out in a year, if you delay it. So I think that is going to impact, especially if you're younger, if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and you inherit retirement accounts and you're a non-spouse, meaning it wasn't your husband or wife that passed away, the tax situation got a lot worse.
It did. Yeah. It really did. Yeah. For those unaware, for those that aren't actively planning, that's true. But what I like is, I know the intentions around the law are for the IRS to get more tax money back, right? That whatever IRS agrees to, they have the intention of receiving more tax dollars from the American people, right? But if we can be a little active about this, it actually gives tax planners more time now to do some tax planning.
You think the delaying of the RMD law gives more opportunities to
It does.
to do so?
It does.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, one strategy I really like is Roth conversions. Right, so most people might be familiar with the Roth IRA, right?
Classic. I love a good Roth conversion strategy.
Good. Yeah. So Roth IRA, you don't get a tax deduction for it, right? But it's similar to an IRA account as if you buy and sell a stock inside the account, it doesn't create a taxable event, right? The only thing that's different between an IRA and a Roth IRA is Roth IRAs are completely tax-free once you meet certain requirements before taking income off.
Which, if I can just say, if you're someone that's under the age of 40 and you're putting money into a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, again, every situation is different. But I would tell you, just stop. Your money should be going into a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k.
Absolutely.
And you may be in a higher income bracket. I'll just say, me and my wife's 100%, and Aaron, you as a CPA may tell me I'm doing it wrong, but 100% of our retirement dollars are going into Roth. We do our Roth 401k, not eligible for Roth IRA, but our Roth 401k, we completely fund it. And I told Kristen, I was like, hey babe, when we retire, 100% of our income in retirement is all coming out tax-free.
It's great.
So I if you're one takeaway, if you're younger, like stop putting money into a tax deferred account because
Sure.
I just think and I think our whole point here, when you look at national debts, almost at 32 trillion.
Yeah.
Just the interest expense on our national debt, I think it's currently $500 billion a year.
It's big.
By 2025, which I'd love to talk at some point about the current tax rates and that they'll expire.
Yeah.
But in 2025, the interest on the debt alone is supposed to surpass what we spend in defense spending.
That's right. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And so I would rather pay taxes now. I don't know which way taxes are going. My gut tells me taxes are going higher post 2025 when the new tax laws do expire, because that's another thing. The current tax rates are not permanent. The Trump tax cuts, those were not permanent. They expire in 2025.
Sure.
I want as much money tax-free as possible. I mean, am I right in thinking that?
You are right. To be fair, every situation is different.
Sure.
Right. But you've used an analogy before, David. Would you rather pay tax on the seed or the harvest?
Love it.
Because, I'm sure a lot of young folks are making a good income this year. Certainly if husband and wife are both working. Right. And you may be paying 35, 37% tax on Roth contributions, Roth 401k contributions.
Right. But I may be paying 37% tax on a $10,000 contribution.
And that's the kicker.
Right.
Right. Which that 10,000, 30, 40 years from now, right, could be substantially more than it is today.
Yeah. So I pay 37% tax on a $10,000 401k contributions. But when I go to pull that out in retirement and it's now that same 10,000 contribution is now 40,000.
Tax-free.
Tax-free.
Complete tax-free.
It makes sense.
Yep.
So let's talk through just the Roth conversion part of things. So in a Roth conversion, let's just say you already have a 401k or an IRA and you're like, okay, the light bulb just went off. I need to get more money tax-free. You can convert money from a taxable IRA or a 401k over to a Roth.
You can.
You pay the tax now. Aaron, I know you've been doing a lot of work with our clients on that. Is that something our listeners, our podcast listeners should consider, our clients should consider more of?
Yeah, I mean, anybody should consider a Roth conversion. There's going to be certain situations that don't make sense, right? If you plan on your tax rate being lower in retirement, right, Roth conversions may not make sense. But generally, and we've done some of the math on this, even if your tax rate's going to remain relatively the same, right, or even increase slightly over time, Roth conversions are most likely going to make sense. They are.
Yeah. So talk me through an example. I know we had a client that actually we started his Roth conversions quite a few years ago.
We did.
He's a client of ours. His daughters are clients of ours. Family's clients of ours. And we ran through, I don't know if you have some of the numbers on you, but I think he had over $1 million in a 401k or in an IRA, which is all taxable, hadn't paid any tax on that money yet.
That's right.
And I think we came up with a 5-year.
It was a 5-year plan.
5-year plan.
For about $300,000 a year.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's aggressive.
It is. It is.
I think most people would not be able to, because what's a tax bill on that?
I mean, you talk about 300,000, even if it was just 20%, you're talking 60 grand at least. And it's probably a little bit more than that. But
can you imagine writing a $60,000 check to the IRS?
It hurts.
That's
it hurts.
Brutal.
Yeah, the tax bills and Roth conversions, it hurts to pay those sometimes. So we see it both ways.
But
It's
it's not that you're going to pay that in the future anyway.
You're just paying it now.
You're just paying it now.
Just paying it
at
now.
a time where rates are probably they are the lowest they've been in 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I always say like sticker shock when you're writing $60,000 to the IRS, like that's insane. That's more than what some people make in a year, but you're done with the tax. You're done.
It's true.
Like that's it. There's no more tax on that money ever again, period, zero.
Done.
So, okay, with him, like what did that save him? What will that save him in taxes by the time he's, I don't know, 90 or 95?
Yeah, so again, it's hard to be exactly predictable as it depends on rate of return. It depends on what tax rates actually will be in the future.
Let's assume tax rates sunset to where they were pre
That's a good point.
2017.
Yeah, so no other tax changes apart from the sunsetting in 2026, right? I mean, even if one spouse lived to age 85, I mean, you're talking $196,000 back in their pocket just for paying a little bit of extra taxes today.
That's sizable.
It's big.
It's sizable.
I mean, age 90, again, this just expounds the longer one spouse is able to live. Right at age 90, you're talking $420,000 right back in their pocket.
So what does that mean when you say their retirement account, they have $400,000 more in their retirement account than they would have if they didn't do Roth conversions?
So think about this. You had to pay $60,000 in taxes just in one conversion for a year, right? But doing these conversions for that 5-year period is actually going to put back and add $420,000 off your income. Because one, you're reducing or completely eliminating the amount of required minimum distributions you owe.
That's an interesting point. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about RMDs. The government forces you to take out RMDs on IRAs, but money that's in a Roth IRA.
Not subject to required minimum distributions.
Got it.
Nope.
So if you're, and this is what he told me, he has 2 daughters, and he said, David, my goal, I want to be able to bless my kids and my grandkids, which is such an amazing goal. But when his daughters and grandkids receive that money, so he's paid all this tax now it's in a Roth IRA. I don't know, he has $2 million in a Roth IRA at 90.
Yeah.
His daughters receive it. They don't pay any tax on that money.
No tax. Still subject to the 10-year rule. So they only have 10 years where they can buy and sell tax-free. But all distributions from the account, completely tax-free.
Okay, so even if they, $2 million, 2 daughters, they get $1 million each, for example.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what their income is. They still have to draw it all out in 10 years, but it doesn't add any more tax to their current income, which is a big difference between passing an IRA versus a Roth IRA right there.
Because again, so back to the example, and this is the one thing I didn't like about the inherited rule was that in 10 years, right, a lot of mostly kids are going to benefit from an IRA source, right? They're going to be a beneficiary on those. Okay. And, we typically see, children inherit these types of accounts at age 40, 50, sometimes 60, but really mostly in their 40s, 50s. They're probably in the top tax bracket of wages they're ever going to be in.
They're in like prime peak earning years.
And the IRS is kind of hoping for that, right? Unfortunately.
It's interesting.
Right? And so when you do have to recognize more income at a 32, 35% bracket, that's a big change. So we talk about that $1 million, right? For easy math, if that $1 million was cut 30%, right? Well, you didn't really inherit $1 million. You inherited $700,000.
Yeah.
Still sizable.
Yeah.
But you're cutting it in thirds, basically. Right?
But do you think if you're at $1 million, it's probably more than 30%? I mean, depending on what it could be because you fit state and then
federal, state. It's going to be more. But for easy math,
yeah. That's interesting. So, all right, I think obviously Roth conversions are something that we've talked a lot about at our firm. You may be saying, oh, well, no, I'm too old to do Roth conversions. We were just talking about a client, a husband and wife. The husband's older than the wife. How old is he?
He's I think he'll turn 80 this year.
He'll turn 80, we're doing Roth conversions for them.
Still doing conversions.
She's a little bit younger, 5 or 6 years younger?
She's about 7, 8 years younger.
7 years younger.
Yep.
That's really what matters. I don't really care how old one of the spouse is because it's the taxes kick in for the last remaining spouse.
They do.
And so almost someone that says 80, we're still doing Roth conversions for. So even if you think, well, I can't do Roth conversions because I've missed the train has left the station I'd say that's not true because it's probably worth still sitting down, seeing if you are a good candidate. Because it is a pretty incredible, like you mentioned, even till age 85 on our first client, that's $160,000 in tax savings. Could be $200,000, $500,000.
That's right.
Depending on how long you live.
Yeah. I mean, age is definitely going to be a factor with Roth conversions, but again, it doesn't mean it's going to stop you from doing them because it really comes down to our tax rates, particularly your tax rates, going to be higher in the future.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay? And if there's any remote chance they're going to be, we're really in a unique time in history right now, right, where we have a set of tax laws that are set to sunset, right? And to my memory, I don't remember another time where that has been the case, where tax rates were expected to expire. I know, yes, a new president can change that in 2024, but that would require a completely new tax bill getting passed.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, what do you think? I mean, honestly, 2025, do you think things will reset higher?
I would love for a Republican president to come in 2024 and say, hey, nope, Trump tax cuts, they're here to stay, right? We're going to extend them 10 more years. Would love that to happen. Do I see that happening? No.
The Republican president part or the
just the tax rates, just the tax. Republican president, I'm hopeful for, definitely hopeful for. But no, I mean, it just debt's going up,
sure,
right? Economy's changing. We've got to do something to manage our budget better, right?
Yeah.
Tax rates are the easiest way to do that.
Yeah.
Right? So,
I guess if you're a tax guy, you probably would be a Republican, right?
I think so.
They lean toward a little lower taxes, right?
That's right.
So, okay, 2025, the tax brackets are set to expire.
Mm-hmm.
So even if, I mean, the odds of taxes going down are probably not. I mean, I guess that's low relative to given the amount of spending. We had $1 trillion in deficit spending that the CBO is projected for the next decade.
Sure.
So the odds are either taxes. I would say two options. The option of them going down is probably off the table. So that leaves either taxes staying the same or taxes going higher.
Yeah.
Even if taxes stay the same, it seems like the Roth conversion question is still a good question to be asking.
It's still a good question because it's not just about the federal tax rates. It's about your tax rates.
Okay.
Right. So again, if you're already taking withdrawals from an IRA, 401k, maybe it doesn't make sense to Roth conversions. Those are some of the situations that I see sometimes, right? But if you're not planning to take income off of it until the IRS forces you to, well, that already is going to bump you into a higher tax bracket than you're paying today.
Got it.
And here's one of the big kickers. So this kind of deals with the way Social Security is taxed. So I know you're familiar.
Yeah.
No more than 85% of your Social Security will ever be included as taxable income in any one year.
Right. Which most people don't realize this, but Social Security, it's your money that you've put into Social Security.
Yes.
And then when the government gives you back your money, they tax you on it.
They do.
I mean,
if you make other income, your Social Security gets taxed.
Yeah, it's a racket. But sorry, go ahead.
It's a unique situation for sure. Yeah. And so, if you have a portion of your Social Security that's not being taxed because your other income is under certain levels, right? But your RMDs are going to require that additional Social Security to be included as income. It could push you into two different tax brackets that first year of RMDs. We've definitely seen that situation before.
That's a good point. So you actually may end up paying more taxes on your Social Security in retirement, just because your forced withdrawals by the government push you into a higher tax bracket on your IRA and your 401k money.
That's correct.
Which is another reason why on a Roth IRA, no forced withdrawals.
No.
And even if you do, you can take an unlimited amount out of your IRA and it doesn't affect your Social Security.
Not at all.
Taxable income.
Not at all. So again, if you have no other recognized income apart from Social Security, you're completely tax-free in retirement.
So all Roth, if you're pulling out $100,000 a year out of your Roth IRA, no impact to your Social Security income.
No impact to Social Security taxes.
You're pulling $100,000 out of your IRA or 401k. Big impact to Social Security.
And 85% of the Social Security earnings you've earned that year are included as taxable income.
See, that's just crazy to me. Again, which is why I sound like a broken record here today. If you're under the age of 40, put money in a Roth IRA. No questions asked. You'll probably tell me, David, wait, we got to ask a few questions before saying that. But I've seen enough math that tells me the odds are in your favor to put money into a Roth IRA.
It's hard to argue against it. It's really hard to argue against it.
Let's talk about if you're young and you're saving money for retirement. The Secure Act 2.0 did also change some contribution amounts, correct?
They did.
Did they up the limits?
Yeah, they upped the limits. So 2023 limits. So your own contributions can be $22,500.
Okay.
Right. New limit for 2023.
Any age.
Any age.
Okay, that's sizable.
Yep. And then catch-up contributions for those over the age of 50 are now going to be $7,500.
Okay.
Right? So you could talk, once you're over the age of 50, you can talk $30,000 that can go into a traditional 401k if you think your tax rates are too high. But you could also be talking about $30,000 that goes into a Roth IRA completely tax-free.
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, you could put away a sizable amount towards retirement. I mean, we can do the math, but if you max out a 401k every year, which you're under 50 is 20, what'd you say?
$22,500.
$22,000 a year, maxing it out towards retirement. I'd love to do what the math is on that, but that's pretty sizable towards retirement. I could probably run some math while we're talking here.
Go ahead.
But I do want to talk with you a little bit about charitable giving because we've got a lot of clients that are charitably inclined.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of listeners that say, David, I want to give money to my church or charity each year. So the Secure Act did make, this is separate of the Secure Act, but it's something called qualified charitable distribution.
Love them.
I am shocked how many retirees don't know about a qualified charitable distribution.
It's pretty surprising, but it's one of my favorite provisions in the tax code right now. Right? So for those who are charitably inclined, like David mentioned, it's called a qualified charitable distribution. So you can begin these at age 70 and a half if you'd like to, but what the big benefit around these are they help satisfy a portion or sometimes all of your required minimum distribution. Okay? So what happens is if you said, hey, I plan on giving, maybe it's $5,000, maybe it's $10,000 this year, okay? And you said, I need money out of my IRA to do so. And you took that money out of your IRA and put it in your bank account, right? Well, that's all taxable income, right? And so maybe you only took out $10,000 from your IRA, but you were in a 22% bracket. Well, great. You really only took out $7,800 that you're going to now give to your church, charity, favorite nonprofit of your choice, right? But if you go straight from an IRA to that same church, charity, nonprofit of your choice, it comes out of your IRA account completely tax-free. Yep. And let's say your RMD was only $10,000 that year. It's also completely satisfied your RMD. Yeah. Really powerful.
I want to come back to that.
Okay.
Do you know, if you're, let me give you this.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
This number is kind of shocking to me.
We're going back to the
Roth contributions. I'm going back to the Roth. I want to get to charitable.
Okay.
If you're 30 years old.
Yep.
And you this is a lot. I'm not this is going to be hard for most people to do.
Sure.
But it's something that you can aspire to.
Mm-hmm.
If you put away 22% of your income, which is $22,000 a year is the max. So you max out your 401k, earn 7% per year, retire at age 67, which I think is probably fair for younger Americans.
Sure.
Do you know and increase it by 2% a year. So if you're increasing, say you get a raise of 2% a year, you're increasing your contribution as long as the IRS allows it.
Yeah.
Do you know what the number is at age 67?
I gotta think it's probably 15 mil, maybe a little more than that.
Say what?
15, 20 mil.
15, 20 million? Good Lord. You'd have to be at like a 40% rate of return.
Oh, excuse me.
5 million.
5 million.
5 million. That's more than what I thought.
Okay.
That's pretty sizable.
Wow.
But $5 million. So you want to get to $5 million at retirement.
Yeah.
Here's how you do it. 30 years old. This is a lot. I'm not saying this is easy to do. $22,000 a year, earning 7%, grow it by 2% a year. Inflation with your raise, you're at $5 million at retirement. That for most people, I would say will cover, you figure it's $200,000 a year in retirement. In today's dollars, you probably reduce that by 40%, but you figure it's probably $10,000 a month in today's dollars for retirement. That's sizable.
Wow.
So, but if you put that into a Roth, all of that comes out tax-free. Can you imagine having $5 million at retirement, completely tax-free?
It's big.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Wow.
So let's jump back to this qualified charitable distribution. So a QCD, you just explained it. Once you hit RMD age, the government, we've been talking about RMDs earlier in the show, the government forces you to take money out of your retirement account.
Correct.
But because of the Trump tax cuts in 2017, the standard deduction, what's the standard deduction right now?
Depending on the age, if you're a younger person, it's younger, married, filing, and joining, it's about $25,900 this year.
Okay, so married, filing, okay. So here's how the standard deduction works is if you make $100,000 a year, for example, as a married couple, it used to be that you would itemize, but if you don't have enough deductions, the government just says, just take the standard deduction, which is roughly, what do we say it was?
Almost $26,000.
Call it $26,000 a year is a standard deduction. So that just wipes off the first $26,000 of your income. So you don't pay any income tax on the first $26,000.
Correct.
But let's just say you gave to your church $10,000 a year. Because that's under the $26,000 standard deduction, you don't get any additional tax benefit for giving to your church.
No tax benefit.
Now, I know we give to our church or a nonprofit just because it's the right thing to do. And if we're Christians, we know that God calls us to tithe and to give. But there's no extra benefit for it.
Not at all.
So by doing a qualified charitable distribution, it actually now allows you to unlock that tax
You
benefit
should get a tax benefit
that you wouldn't
for it.
normally get. Now, only for those that are over age
7.5.
7.5. So anyone that's under 70, sorry, this is no help there.
Sure.
But for those of you that are retirement age or over age 70, walk me through. So you would send the payment to your church or nonprofit as a QCD.
That's right. Yeah, directly from the IRA. Again, it can't come to you. If it comes to you, it's a recognized income. It would be received as an itemized deduction. Most likely not going to get a tax benefit.
Are churches going to know what to do with this? So they just get this?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, most churches are going to be very familiar with this.
Okay. Okay.
Because again, they want to benefit their patrons as well.
Yeah.
So
So the check goes directly from your IRA. So you have an IRA account, whatever it is. You got $500,000 in an IRA. You say, I'm going to give $10,000 to my church. If you're writing out your tithe right now, stop. If you're over the age of 71.
Absolutely.
And do it as send it from your retirement account because, let's just use this example.
Go ahead.
If you have $100,000 household income, you're 72 years old, you're going to give $10,000 to your church. What benefit am I getting by doing, what do I save in taxes by doing it as a QCD?
Well, let's see. So if it's 100,000 income, you get the standard, it's going to call it. So basically you'll be in the 12% tax bracket.
Okay.
So 12% of 10,000 essentially. If that's
so $1,200 in tax savings.
That year alone.
Okay.
Yeah.
You may poo-poo. That's an official term. $1,200.
It's back in your pocket.
But that's just by changing the way you give your tithe.
That's right.
$1,200 back in your tithe. If you're in a 22% bracket, which how much do you have to make as a married couple to be in the 22% bracket?
Married couple in retirement, you have to make at least 83,000.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, so after the standard deduction, so call it 110,000.
110,000. Got it.
Yeah.
So, okay, if you're $110,000 and you give to your church that way, you're saving $2,200 in taxes.
Yep.
So again, if you're listening right now, another little tidbit that can hopefully put money in your pocket today. If you're over the age of 70 and a half, stop writing a check to your church directly, unless you itemize. I guess you would pick it up if you itemize.
You could. Again, the four biggest itemizing deductions that I see are qualified charitable distributions, right? Well, charitable distributions. Okay. You've got mortgage interest if you still have a mortgage, right? You have state tax. In Georgia, most retirees aren't paying a lot of state tax. That usually doesn't apply to our clients. And then 4, you've got medical expenses if they're over 7.5% of your AGI. Again, rare, but you still see those cases each year, right? So again, without those 4, right? Let's say you don't have a mortgage anymore,
right?
Okay?
Which a lot of retirees don't,
right? They won't. Okay, like I said, Georgia, a lot of retirees in Georgia don't pay any state tax. Okay, that's another big deduction gone. So think about this: to start getting any tax benefit from just writing a check to your church, right? You're gonna have to give close to $28,000
in tithes.
If
you don't have a home mortgage,
if you
deduction.
have no other itemized deductions.
Got it.
I mean, sure, most, a lot of people out there are probably giving that amount, and then fantastic for that, right? But if you're not really getting any tax benefit.
So that's a good point. So itemizing, the odds of you're probably not itemizing.
Most likely
so
not.
If you are just writing your check to your church or a nonprofit, then if you do it as a qualified charitable distribution, our team can help you do that. We handle it all with the custodians. Then if you're in a 22% bracket, that's $2,200 that is back in your pocket that you're getting in tax savings. That's worth the price of.
For sure. I mean, for that year and every year you do something like that.
See, for 30 minutes, I think that was a good payback on your time if you're listening to the Retire Ready podcast, right? $2,200 in your pocket. I think that's not bad.
Good value add.
That is a pretty good value add. Yeah. Well, man, we covered a lot today.
There's a lot to cover with taxes. A lot to cover.
I think I need a drink of whiskey after all the math that we just went through on that.
Taxes aren't always the most enjoyable thing to discuss.
Yeah.
But if we can talk about the ways in the tax code to save people money in taxes, it's time well spent.
It's a huge win. And this is why, again, there's a lot of great financial advisory firms in Georgia, all over the U.S. But it's why I do feel like we are different in the value that we add. Like, we've got a CPA in-house. That's also a financial planner, also an investment advisor. And the way that you can look at things from a tax standpoint, I just think is a huge benefit to our clients. So
it's really important. I mean, wealth management is always going to be about the stocks, always going to be about the bonds, always going to be about growing and protecting wealth, right? But especially when there's been significant changes, really within the last 4 or 5, including 2017, call it 6 years, right, in tax codes, tax planning can really add a lot of value in your overall retirement plan.
Yeah.
We just shared with you, we did a Roth conversion strategy, right, for a client, and it may save them or may add a value to their account of up to $400,000. Right? Yeah. I mean, if you're sitting there thinking, hey, I'd like $400,000 back in my pocket too, well, great.
Right. And every case is a little bit different, but that's why I think if financial advisors are only talking to you about stocks and mutual funds, you're leaving a lot on the table.
You are.
I would argue picking stocks is probably the easiest part of our job. I know that for someone that's not invested in the market, that may seem like it doesn't make sense, but because that's what we do every day. But so if you're working with a financial advisor just because they're picking you stocks and mutual funds, I think you're leaving a lot on the table. I think that's the point. Well, hey, this was great, and we appreciate tuning in for really our first episode of Retire Ready. We hope that you got value out of this show. We'd love for you to check out our website, nicholaswealth.com, to find out more information about our firm, about our team, and you can also find out more about the show. And we'll look forward to joining you here each week, and we'll see you back here next week for another episode of Retire Ready. Thanks for joining us.